All right, let's dive into something pretty wild. One of the most fascinating states of human consciousness out there, the world of lucid dreaming.
So, let me ask you something. Have you ever been in the middle of some crazy dream and all of a sudden your brain just goes, hang on a second, this is a dream? If you've had that moment, well, you're definitely not alone. And if you haven't, you're going to be pretty amazed at what you might be missing out on.
Okay, so to really get a grip on the science here, first we got to define what we're even talking about. And then we'll take a look at its history, which is surprisingly long.
So, what is a lucid dream? At its heart, it's just that, a dream where you realize you're dreaming. Simple, right? But here's the game changer. The modern thinking is that this isn't just some random thing that happens. Nope, it's an actual trainable skill. And get this, while the term lucid dream is pretty new, only about 100 years old, the experience itself, it's ancient. I mean, we're talking Aristotle way back in the 4th century BC, writing about being aware that you're in a dream. Then you've got the Roman physician Galen using it as therapy. Fast forward to the 1600s, and Sir Thomas Browne is literally writing entire comedies in his sleep. This stuff has been with us forever.
Okay, so if it's a skill you can learn, what does it look like to get good at it? What does mastery mean here?
Well, according to clinical psychologist Kristen Lamarca, it's kind of like leveling up in a video game. There are 4 stages. You start as a beginner. Maybe you've had a couple of those brief aha moments. With a bit of practice, you hit the experienced level, where you can actually start to control things. Then you get to proficient, where you're deliberately using your dreams to do specific things. And the expert level, we're talking about people who've dedicated their lives to it, sometimes for decades, like Tibetan Buddhist masters.
But how common is all this really? Is it just a few people? Not at all. A huge study back in 2016 found that more than half of us, 55%, have had a lucid dream at least once. And almost a quarter of the population has them regularly, like once a month or more. So yeah, this is not some weird fringe thing. It's a pretty basic part of the human experience. All right, this is where we get to the really cool part. The science. For so long, this was just an internal feeling. So how on earth did science finally prove it was a real, measurable thing? I mean, think about the challenge here. A dream is totally locked inside someone's head. How do you study that from the outside? You can't. You're just waiting for them to wake up and tell you about it. What scientists really needed was, well, a bridge, a way to connect the private world of the dream to the public world of the science lab.
And the breakthrough idea? It was so simple. It was brilliant. What if the dreamer could send a signal out from inside the dream itself?
And that's exactly what happened in 1975. It was this landmark experiment. An experienced lucid dreamer, Alan Worsley, and a researcher, Dr. Keith Hearn, came up with a plan. They decided on a secret signal. Worsley would move his eyes left and right a specific number of times once he became lucid in his dream. And then it worked. He fell asleep, entered REM, became lucid, and sent the signal. The lab equipment went off. That was it. The smoking gun. The very first verifiable proof that someone could be conscious while their body was completely asleep.
So what's actually going on inside the brain when this happens? Well, neuroscientist J. Allen Hobson had a great way of explaining it. He said to think of a specific part of your brain, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, as the CEO. It's the part in charge of self-awareness and decision-making. In a normal dream, the CEO is out to lunch, completely offline. But in a lucid dream, the CEO suddenly walks back into the office, turns on the lights, and goes, "Okay, what's going on here?" And that's the moment you realize you're dreaming.
Okay, so we know it's real, we know we can study it. But so what? What can you actually do with it? And, are there any risks?
Honestly, the potential uses are mind-blowing. For therapy, it's a powerhouse for helping people who suffer from chronic nightmares. For creativity, artists, programmers, they use it as a kind of ultimate sandbox. But maybe the craziest application is skill rehearsal. Imagine a surgeon practicing a super complex operation over and over in a perfectly safe, simulated environment, all while they're asleep. It's incredible.
But we gotta be fair, it's not all upsides. For some people, especially those with certain mental health issues, there's a real risk of confusing what's real and what's a dream. And it's also really important to distinguish it from something called sleep paralysis. That's totally different. That's when your mind wakes up before your body does, and you're essentially paralyzed. It can be super scary with these intense hallucinations. That's not lucid dreaming. That's almost the opposite of the control you feel in a lucid state.
And finally, this brings us to the big picture. Because the fact that lucid dreaming even exists, it became this crucial piece of evidence in a huge century-old debate in science.
Yeah,
The simple fact that our minds can wake up inside a dream makes us ask a really fundamental question. Why do we dream in the first place? And lucid dreaming just threw a massive log on that fire, a debate that really features two of the biggest names in the field going head-to-head.
So, in one corner, you've got Sigmund Freud. For him, dreams were all about fulfilling unconscious wishes. But he said there's this mental censor that disguises the dream's true meaning so it doesn't shock us awake. And for Freud's theory, well, lucid dreaming's a huge problem, right? If the whole point is to stay asleep and disguised, how can you just become aware and take over? Then in the other corner, you have J. Allen Hobson, the neuroscientist we mentioned earlier. He said, no. Dreams are just your brain's attempt to make a story out of random signals firing from your brainstem. It's just noise. And for his theory, lucid dreaming is the ultimate proof. It's your brain doing the best possible job of making sense of the chaos by literally saying, oh, I get it. This chaos is a dream.
And so that whole debate just leaves us hanging with this enormous final question. What lucid dreaming proves, really, is that consciousness isn't just an on or off switch. It's more like a dimmer. So, if your mind can be awake while your body is asleep, if you can be self-aware in a world that doesn't exist, what does that really tell us about what consciousness even is? Now that is something to dream on.